So guys, today we will be discussing about asset properties in Dbms. Okay, from the last few weeks, like I have been receiving some request regarding the asset properties, like what are the asset properties in Dbms. And listen to me, guys. Like when I'm explaining this proper asset properties, I mean like it is beneficial for all the candidates like who are sitting in an interview or who are preparing for grades. Like it's a concept, it's basically a concept I'm explaining here. Okay, so if you want to know in a very brief scenarios like what it is and what it does, so you can watch this video. Okay, so now let's start. Like what are the asset properties in Dbms? So basically the asset properties are those properties where these make sure like that whatever transactions are happening with the database, they are going accurately. Okay, by the term transaction I mean like whether user is updating any data into the database, or it's deleting the database, or it's doing anything. So whatever the transactions are happening in the database, it is taken care of by the asset properties. This is a very conceptual topic. It will not be visible to you anywhere, but somehow or the other developer uses these properties because as a developer is working on these transactions, he or she need to make sure that he or she should fulfill these properties in order to make transactions secure and proper. Okay, now when we talk about asset properties, the first A of the asset properties is atomicity. Now the what atomicity says is, it says that entire transaction takes place at once or doesn't happen at all. Now I can explain this to you with an example. Let's say like if you are taking an example of ATM transaction. Okay, so what happens is like when you go to the ATM, you put the card into the machine, and suddenly what happens is you are in the middle of the process, you are entering your pin, and suddenly power goes off. So what happens is like the transaction is incomplete. Okay, and suddenly the power goes off. Now what will happen is when the power will resume, the transaction that you were doing, it will again start from the beginning. Okay, it will not resume from there. It is not like downloading, like whenever the power goes off and that the download stops, and when the power comes, it does the download resumes from there itself. So what atomicity does is it makes sure that the transaction should happen all at once or none at all. So whenever the light goes off, the transaction stops there, and whenever the power resumes, the transaction needs to happen from the beginning. So this is the atomicity property. It makes sure that the transaction should occur at all at once or none at all. Okay, now second one is a C in asset properties, and it is consistency. What it says is the database must be consistent before and after the transaction. So let me explain this to you again with an example of the ATM transaction. It will help you like to have a clear idea of that. So what it says is this, like you need to withdraw the money from your savings account. Okay, now what happens is like if in your savings account you have 10,000 rupees, and currently you have uh 1,000 rupees. Okay, let's ignore the example. Let's take another simple example. You will get to know more in a clear way in that way. So again taking here the example of ATM transaction. So now you need to transfer the money from one account to other. Okay, so what happens here is like in this, let's suppose there are two accounts, account A and account B, and you need to transfer money from account A to account B. Now what happens is like, let's say suppose account A has a money of 10,000 and account B has a money of 5,000. So what consistency does is it's check the database before the transaction and after the transaction. By this term I mean like it checks both the accounts. Like first of all it will check the account of A, like that it has 10,000 rupees, then it will check the account of B that it has 5,000 rupees. Now when the transaction will happen, now when you will just let's say suppose you need to transfer 1,000 rupees from account A to account B. Now what will happen is it will take the 1,000 rupees from account A, and then it will transfer to account B. Now what happens is account A gets decreased by 1,000 rupees, which makes it 9,000 rupees. and account B gets credited with the 1,000 rupees, which makes it 6,000 rupees. Okay. Now, what I'm saying here is like what consistency it makes sure is it takes the sum of the money before the transaction and after the transaction. Before the transaction, the sum of money was account A was having 10,000 rupees, account B was having 5,000 rupees. So the sum of money was 15,000. Now after the transaction, account A has been left with 9,000 rupees, account B has 6,000 rupees. Now which makes it again 15,000. So this is the consistency. It's check this property checks that before the transaction and after the transaction, whatever that amount of money is there, it should be same, it should not be inconsistent. So this is what inconsistency does in the asset properties. Now next moving on to the isolation in asset properties, which is I, and it is denoted by I. It is called isolation. What it tells us is like multiple transactions occur independently without interference. So now let's take an example, like just let me take an example of database DB. Okay. If the multiple transactions are happening, see, it cannot be possible in today's scenario like the one transaction should take place at one time. There are multiple transaction, or at least I should say there are a million transactions that are happening from one database of any bank, right? So what happens is this isolation property makes sure that multiple transactions that are happening at the same period of time, they should be isolated from each and they should be isolated from each other, like they should not get mixed up. Like if I am making a transaction from ATM account, like if I am making any transaction, I need to withdraw 10,000 rupees from any account, and in the same way and at the same time any other user need to withdraw the money from the account. So these two transactions are happening at the same time. Okay. So isolation property makes sure that whatever transactions are happening at the same point of time, they should be isolated from each other, like they should not get interfered. Okay. So this is what this is what the assurance is provided by the isolation in asset properties. Now, next we move on to the last one, which is the D, and it stands for durability. And what it says is the changes of a successful transactions occurs even if the system failure occur. Now, in simple terms, if I explain it to you, like if you make any transaction to your account, okay. Now, suppose you credit 10,000 rupees to your account, okay. What happens is if your account already has 10,000 rupees and you again credit it with 10,000 rupees, it becomes 20,000. Now it doesn't happen like this, like when you go and check it the next time, you will find again that 10,000 only. Okay. So this is what durability does. Durability do is like it makes sure that whatever changes are happening, that changes needs to be permanent. It should not be temporary. If you are transferring any money from your personal savings to your any FD or anything, whenever you are crediting or in debiting that the amount, it should be permanent. It should not be like when you go and check the another time, it is not there. So this is what durability does. It says it's like the change of a successful transaction occurs even if the system failure occurs. Even if the system failure occurs, then also this that whatever the transaction you are making, it becomes permanent even if the system failure occurs. So this is what the durability does in asset properties. So this is all about the asset properties, guys. Please make sure to like and comment and subscribe. Please tell me like what topics do you want me to cover in the next video, so that I will be happy to help you in all these topics related to the database and datas. Okay. So thanks guys, that's for all. Thank you. Bye.